G'day. We're going to have a look into this Acer Swift Edge 16. This is the 2024 model. It's a 16-inch ultra-light, ultra-thin laptop. Now I have reviewed the previous model, which is the 2023 model. If you haven't checked that review out, I'll put a link in the description below so you can check it out after this. But what's pretty much changed since between the 23 and the 24? Well, cutting through the chase, it's pretty much just the processor they've done. And now it's using the AMD Ryzen 8000 mobile processor. Now, I do know as of recording of this video, there is the new AMD Ryzen AI mobile processor, which I actually do have right here, which is this one here, which is the Acer ZenBook S16. Now, this is also a 16-inch. Now, what's really the cool thing about this Acer Swift Edge 16 is actually its lightness. It is deceivingly light for what it is, especially with a big screen like here. And even if I close this off and actually feel it between this one here, which is the ZenBook S16. Now this does have the new AMD Ryzen AI. There's a 9HX370 in this one here, and it still is a little bit heavier compared to the Acer Swift Edge 16. Now you still got all the ports, and that's the beauty of this thing here, but we're going to still have a look at all the other parts of this anyway, which is the temperatures and fan noise, and look at some of the other features just to have so you can have a quick look at it. As you can see, I'm just going to use the scanner to log in. It does have all those features, got a good selection of AI ports as well. And as always, I will be putting timestamps along this video so you can skip to different sections. You may be interested to save you time. Look at the ports starting right hand side. We've got the security lock slot, and then we've got a USB type A port. Now that's USB 3.2 Gen 2, audio combo jack, a micro SD card slot, which is nice to see it still has it. And looking on the left hand side, we've got two USB type C ports. Now these are USB 4, and you can use any of these to charge the Acer Swift Edge 16. And then we've got the full size HDMI port, which is version 2.1, and then we've got a USB type A port, again USB 3.2 Gen 2 port. Measuring the color gamut coverage of the 16-inch 3.2K OLED display, which has a maximum peak brightness of 500 nits for VISA display HDR, and it also has a refresh rate of 120 Hz. It resulted with 100% sRGB coverage, 94.1% Adobe RGB coverage, and 98.8% DCI P3 coverage. Now this is extremely high and is suited for photo and video editing tasks. Looking at temperatures and fan noise for the Swift Edge 16, when I took my measurements, the ambient temperature in the room was 25 degrees Celsius. And just to give you a reference point, my hand was around about 37 degrees Celsius at this room temperature. So it's quite a bit of a hot night. So I took my base measurement when the computer was idle, and the hottest air around the keyboard measured a maximum of 36 degrees Celsius. And as for the fan noise, it pretty much stayed silent at 35 decibels. And the average internal core temperature was 36 degrees Celsius. Then I put 20% load on the computer. That's pretty much average use. So it's tasks like office productivity work, surfing the web, streaming video, and the hottest air around the keyboard measured a maximum of 38 degrees Celsius. And as for the fan noise, again, still stayed silent at 35 decibels. And the average internal core temperatures on it increased a little bit to up to 40 degrees Celsius. Then I put 50% load on the computer, and the hottest air around the keyboard measured a maximum of 47 degrees Celsius. And as for the fan noise, it did spin up a little bit more and hit a maximum of 40 decibels. And the average internal core temperature was 73 degrees Celsius. Then I put 100% load on the computer, and the hottest air around the keyboard measured a maximum of 49 degrees Celsius. As for the fan noise, it spun all up to a maximum of 43 decibels, and the average internal core temperature was 75 degrees Celsius. So it's pretty quiet even at maximum load. And I also measured the bottom back cover while I had 100% load, and the hottest air around the bottom back cover measured in a maximum of 42 degrees Celsius. So definitely would not really put this on your lap where it has 100% load. Most of the time I don't really advise any laptop to really put on your lap or has a lot of load. Taking note, the hottest air around the keyboard is above the 5 and 6 keys, which is not really an area you normally touch. So most of the area that you actually would touch, you actually don't feel much of a heat at all. Examining the processor's performance for long duration tasks. Now this Swift Edge 16 is configured with AMD Ryzen 7 8840U processor. And it reports that this processor has a 3.3 gigahertz as a base clock speed, which is actually quite high already. And I've got pretty much task that's running on 100% load on the system resources, so that's for the processor, memory and storage, and running at pretty much mostly 100% utilization. And I can see the processor speed is ranging anywhere between 3 to about 3.8 gigahertz. Now this is also in the performance mode, in the Acer performance mode at the moment, so it is running at performance, and I've got best performance in the Windows as well. And this is actually doing all right. It is barely just keeping up with the base clock speed. Now this is an average, so if we're going to examine this a little bit more down here. Now this task has been going for a little bit over an hour, and I can just bring up this hardware monitor here, and we can see the actual processor is now on each individual processor seeing their clock speed, and you'll see they will go from about 3 to about 3.8 gigahertz. Now it does move around, and that's because of the type of process it's running, but it's running at 100% utilization. Now this is, remember that with the AMD Ryzen, the 8000 mobile processor, they don't have any efficiency cores. These are full-blown cores, so you do get the full-blown performance from all these cores. We don't get any cut down cores, which is actually doing pretty good here. And we do have, being a U processor, this is running at 15 watts, so that's pretty good, and I'm pretty happy with how that's running. Now this is a very thin laptop, so the fact that it's actually still able to pull some high speeds like this and try to maintain quite high above the 3 gigahertz, that is pretty good. Now also what I was mentioning is that the processor is running an average about 74 to about 75 degrees Celsius. So we still got a bit of headroom here up to 90 or 100, and this is actually keeping it quite safe. Now this is actually Acer implementation of this processor, so they actually do have probably a little bit leeway. So I don't say this is really loud at all these fans, but you definitely do hear it still. The weight of the Acer Swift Edge 16 is 1.24 kilos, plus the 65 watt power adapter becomes a combined weight of 1.55 kilos you might be carrying around with you. Here's the results of the benchmarks performed on the Acer Swift Edge 16. Here's the results for Passmark, Citybench R23, Citybench 2024, PC Mark, 3D Mark, Crystal Disk Mark, Crossmark, Geekbench 6, Procon Office, Procon Photo Edit, Procon Video Edit, Puget Photoshop, Puget Lightroom, Puget Premiere Pro, Blender, Luxmark, Furmark, Eugene Engine, SpecView Pref 2020, and some gaming benchmarks like Far Cry 6, Forza 5, F1 2023, and Wukong Black Myth. This is a recording from the 1440p webcam from the Acer Swift Edge 16. So the video and audio unedited, so you can hear and see what the quality of the webcam is like. Now, I'm actually in a cafe at the moment. There's not that much noise around me. There is some people talking. Hopefully, this is audio should be isolate my voice for video conferencing. Now, I love the fact that they put up 1440p webcam on this Acer. Means we actually have the ability to have high resolution. We can always lower the resolution in software, but we don't have the physical hardware. We can't up it. So lovely to have a 1440p webcam. Now, as for the color-wise, I find it is quite neutral, and from this side here. But overall, definitely love to hear your thoughts on this 1440p webcam. Put a comment below. There are two speakers located on the bottom front on either side of the laptop. They are bottom firing speakers, and when I measured the maximum volume of the speakers, it managed to measure a peak of 81.8 decibels. Now I consider this on the upper end of the quietness compared to other laptops, so it could be more louder, but I was still able to take video conferencing outdoors or at cafe. Wasn't too hard at all. I didn't really find there was much change in the speakers, so there was pretty much not very tinny and have some bit of bass, so there is some loads that which aren't really missing. We have quite strong highs, and it is balanced towards the highs. Has very good clarity for highs, especially for voice, which I again said that I didn't have any issues on video conferencing when I was outdoors or at a cafe. So they're still decent sounding speakers. As for the battery life, I managed to get 7 hours and 40 minutes for the modern office battery life test in PC Mark 10, 1 hour and 12 minutes for gaming, 7 hours and 45 minutes for video playback on the Procom battery life test. Now, I actually consider this quite average. Now, as for the build construction, it is still made of magnesium aluminum alloy, and you definitely feel it there. Now, it doesn't look amazing because it is quite black in a sort of sense, so if you're looking for that nice premium feel, this is probably not one of those that actually have that. So here it goes back to the good old days, and we're gonna quickly just do the bend and flex test, and it holds up really strong for a 16-inch computer. And I'm just gonna do the twist test. That is doing very well. Now, as for the actual keyboard flex, let's just try and do this. I'm putting about a medium amount of weight in it. It does flex a little bit, but this is a large thing, so it still holds up pretty well. It should no problems hold up for quite a lot of couple of years on durational files. You wouldn't do what I've just done now. It still does pretty fantastic. Now, as for the hinge wise, we just do the one finger test here, and this is just the one finger, and I'm just gonna go for it. And it is clamping a little bit, but overall does pretty well. Now it goes all up to what I'll say is about 140 degrees. Well, we'd say that 140 degrees, that's the maximum they can do. And we're going to quickly do the good old wiggle test that I do to see how if it clamps very well for the hinge, and that is clamping. That is a good sign that we actually have some clamping, so the hinge is nicely designed. Now it is on two ends of the ver, and we actually have, it's actually very good, and it does actually lift the bottom up a little, as there is actually two rubber bits on here just to help it out. Overall, with the Swift Edge 16, I really enjoy carrying around this laptop around with me. It's just so light. It is a joy to put it on my backpack, pull out a computer which has a big 16-inch OLED display, which has very nice vibrancy and also brightness, along with the color accuracy. I can easily work with some decent performance from this Swift Edge 16. Now, as for the I/O ports, I really love the selection they've given you, so I don't have to carry dongles around me. Fantastic here, and the keyboard does a decent job, and so does the trackpad. Now, the speakers wise, it could be improved, but it does an alright job. And as for the battery life, now this is probably an area that can improve, but it is also one of those double-edged sword. As you try and increase the battery life, it has increased from the previous one, but also you also need more weight for it, as battery weigh a lot. But this still does a fantastic job. So if you find a really decent price for this Swift Edge 16, definitely go for it, because I think it is a great bargain that you can find for this Swift Edge 16. Now, I hope you find this video informative and enjoyed it. If you did, even support my channel, smash that like button for me, share this video, it does help me out. And as always, imperfections in life makes it beautiful and interesting. And I'll see you next video.